Well, shalom, shalom, my friends, shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And you know that I love theater people and music people, and boy, oh boy, do we have a special guest with us tonight. She's not Jewish, even though her name sounds a little bit Jewish, and you can actually see a Christmas tree very slowly rotating behind her. We won't hold that against her, because at least she's put a couple of Jewy things on it. The person we're talking to has been in the neighborhood twice before, once in 2005, again in 2015. She is back, and all through those years, and even before, she was making delightful folk music. Of course, you recognize CHRISTINE LAVIN. Let me tell you, she writes serious songs, silly songs about everything from Prince Charles to the Great British Baking Show. She finally, after years and years, released a best of, which doesn't even include her songs about baseball, Aspen, and the amoeba hop. How could you leave those off? Anywho, she got an honorary doctorate from SUNY, of all places, and she is here with us because on Monday night, November 22nd, she will be at Birdland doing her show. It is CHRISTINE LAVIN. You look great. Shalom to you. Welcome. Yay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. So the first question that I'm asking everybody these days is, how was your pandemic?
Oh, well, it's very interesting. I, started recording in 1981. That's 40 years ago. I started writing songs way before that, but I would make a new record every year or year and a half. I've made 25 solo records and 10 compilations. Plus, I've done a bunch of radio shows. And so I was always used to singing on stage, whatever my new record was, because that's the way I would do it. But the pandemic hit, and we all had to go online if we wanted to connect with audiences. And people started requesting songs that I haven't done in decades sometimes, for no other reason that I just got, tired of the old stuff because I was always doing new stuff. So I'm doing a show on Monday at Birdland, which I'm calling, I'm not sure the exact title, The Best of the Pandemic Requests, or it's also going to be called Buy My Catalog, because I've never tried to sell my songs, but Bob Dylan did this year. And I thought, if Bob Dylan can do it, anybody can do it. So
Bob Dylan can also sing Rodgers and Hammerstein songs. I think I'd rather hear you do them than Bob Dylan do them, but still. But so what are some of the songs that audiences most request from you? Obviously, What Was I Thinking? That's got to be up there. But what are...
No, it's not in the show. The cabaret world is very different from the folk world. Folk world, we do like a 2-hour concert with an intermission. Cabaret world, if you're lucky, it's 75 minutes. And I have a surprise guest in the show too. So she's going to do a special cameo in the middle. Should I tell you who the surprise guest is?
Well, I wish you would, but then it's not really a surprise, but go ahead, please.
Or it'll be a surprise for her because she doesn't know.
That's marvelous. Okay.
No, I've actually done that at shows. I remember one time in Albany, I was going back to the stage for the second part of the show, and I saw this woman, I think her name is Ruth Pelham, who was sitting in the audience, and I thought, oh my God, Ruth is here. She's great. I should have asked her to do a song. So as I walked up on stage, I tell the audience, who's in the house? Ruth Pelham. Wouldn't it be great if she came up and did a song? And she was like, I gave her, 2 seconds warning, but she's a pro. And she came out of the audience and she totally wowed them. And she kind of stole the show. But you know what? That was okay with me because it was my idea. And anything that's good for the show is good for the show. So the special guest on Monday is going to be Deirdre Flint of the Four Bitchin' Babes. And she is one of the most creative, quirkiest, brilliant songwriters and monologists that I've ever witnessed. And so I'm hoping she'll be a huge discovery for the theater world that I hope will fill many of the seats at the Birdland Theater.
Was she, forgive me for not knowing this right off, was she one of the original Bitchin' Babes?
No, there's always been sort of a chair for the funny person. And I was the funny person in the original group. And I asked to, oh my goodness, Camille West. That was the
Oh yeah,
person
yeah, yeah.
suggested to replace me, and she was hilarious. And then different people have been the funny person. And Deirdre came on board, I think, almost like 20 years ago as the funny one. And she also plays bass. So she adds a lot musically, and her song, nobody writes songs like her. And I'm so glad I'm beyond the age of envy, Rabbi. You know, I got to tell you,
Well, let me.
because
Yeah, that's a fair question because when you were coming up, like in literally in the early 1980s or the 90s, and you had a pretty major label, you had success, you were touring, but at the same time there were other people like Tracy Chapman or somebody like that,
I know I
Suzanne
was
Vega.
so jealous of her. I was so jealous of Tracy Chapman. And I actually even mentioned it to Dave Van Ronk. And Dave Van Ronk said to me, "Is she doing good work?" And I said, "Yeah, she is." He says, "Oh no, never root against your competitor if what they are doing is good work, because their success will mean more work for everybody. So always root for them to do well if they're doing good work. If they're doing bad work, then they can go to hell, you know."
So who is doing bad work that still succeeded beyond your wildest imagination?
You think, you know what, I would never badmouth anybody, especially not on Zoom. It could go viral. It would.
Well, if they're still, there could be anybody dead that you want to talk smack about. No.
No, I'll tell you, in fact, I'll tell you some nice smack. There was a guy on Saturday, or maybe it was Friday. It was either Friday or Saturday, an article in the New York Times called "The Many Deaths of William Holden." Did you happen to read it?
I did not know.
It was about this guy wrote it about his dad. His dad was so worried that kids were going to get hurt and he thought William Holden died all these different gruesome ways. And I thought that what was going to end the story is that it would be revealed that when Suzanne Vega did her song Tom's Diner, she said, "I open up the paper, there's a story of an actor who had died while he was drinking. It was someone I'd not heard of," something like that. And it was William Holden she was singing about. And that's how I thought the article was going to end. And it didn't. And I thought, I am sure it didn't end with William Holden because this writer does not know that's who she was singing about. So I looked up the writer, I found his email, and I wrote to him and I said, "You know what?" And he wrote back, he goes, "Oh my God, I love Suzanne Vega. I saw her concert in Paris in 2010 when I was a student." He said, "How did I not know that was William Holden?" So I said to him, I wrote back, "Want me to do a cyber introduction?" So that happened. That happened on Monday. They had a cyber introduction. And I think he's going to write about her now. And that makes me so happy because Suzanne Vega was somebody who a lot of people were jealous of. I never was, because I was always such a huge fan of her work. The first time I ever saw her was at the Speakeasy. And she stood there, she came on stage, and she just stood at the microphone, and the audience like, blah, 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 and she just stood there. And very slowly, the audience quieted down. And then she stepped up to the mic and she started singing Tom's Diner. And I had never seen anyone control an audience without moving a muscle. It was brilliant. And it showed great confidence on her part and great theatricality to get the audience.
I have tried that technique. I've tried one in my shul at the sermons. I wait, I stand there. Eventually I start throwing fruit and herring. It does not work for me. And they continue screaming.
You just have, you know what, you have to stand there longer. You have to be very brave.
No, I've tried longer, and then cans and bottles follow. It's just not. I have a tough shul crowd. What can I tell you?
Oh, you know what? Talk about tough crowds. The toughest crowd I ever had in my life was opening for Joan Rivers in Palm Beach, Florida. I call it Bomb Beach. And it was the worst. And I wrote a book about 10 years ago, and I opened the book with the story, how her audience, Joan was a doll. Her people were wonderful. They were so kind to me. They liked me. Her audience hated my guts. It was so awful. Everything I did landed wrong. Everything that happened on stage. But Anyway, thanks
But
for bringing up that memory, Rabbi.
well, you actually told that story, I think, last time or when you were on this show. So
Really?
people can go back and listen to Christine Lavin tell the whole Joan Rivers story. But now it makes me, when you go through a night like that, and I'm sure you've had other nights like that, but not nearly as bad, earlier in your career, did it make you question you and what you're doing? Or were you able to just sort of take a shower, shrug it off, and go, to them, I've got a show tomorrow, it'll be good?
No, it really was a smack upside the head. And it would happen like once a year to me.
Hmm.
And it would make me really value the audience that comes and listens and actually buys CDs, and it encourages me, because it, it made me realize that we're so lucky. Anybody who can get up in front of a crowd and hold their attention, it's a great sign of respect on their part that they do that, and we can never take them for granted. And it's a meritocracy on the stage. It's not a democracy. Not anybody can just get up there because they think they have something to say. You have to really, really work at it. And but I just moved. I'm in a building with all performers, mostly older, and a lot of them are on Broadway. And the thing is, they're so strict here because of COVID. There's a big rehearsal room on the second floor, but they only allow 4 people to ever be in it at one time because of,
Of course, yeah.
restrictions of crowd size and stuff like that.
But it's interesting that you're choosing to live in Midtown Manhattan as opposed to, at your age, at your stage, to go maybe to Vermont or to get a cabin somewhere, or not to retire, because everything's digital and Zoom anyway. Yes, and then when you need to tour, you got to get on a plane or a train or a bus anyway to Hooterville. So, but you chose still New York. Why?
So why did I choose to stay? Well, you know what? I actually wanted to move to Saratoga Springs, and I went up there in the spring, and I looked at an apartment, but it was more expensive than I could really afford, and it just was very tiny and dark. And to tell you the truth, it was part of like a retirement home, and there were a lot of people with walkers and wheelchairs, and I thought, I'm not ready for that yet. No.
And the nice thing is, with you, all you have to do is take like a stick and attach it to the bottom of your guitar, and you can kind of walk with it, or get an upright bass, and then you can just, almost use it as an oar as you're crossing the street. But I'm just so. Let me ask you also, in terms of writing songs, did you write more during COVID, or no? You just felt you watched more television, you did more cooking, and so forth.
I actually wrote differently, because most of my songs, I've said this many times, I don't make stuff up. I just make it rhyme. And the thing is, if you're kind of locked up in your apartment and you only go out once a week to Trader Joe's, you end up writing about Trader Joe's, or you just make stuff up. And I did record an album in 2020 when restrictions were lifted a little bit, but we all wore masks, and it was a recording studio on 20th Street and 7th Avenue. And I would walk down 20th Street, and I walked by Kleinfeld's Bridal Salon, then the next business of Mike's Tech Shop, which I'm now a customer of. They do Apple products. And then after that was a Naughty Lingerie boutique. And while walking to the recording studio, Bridal Salon, Tech Shop, Naughty Lingerie, I thought, what if a bride from some place in Montana was so excited about shopping at Kleinfeld's for her wedding dress that by accident she walked into Mike's Tech Shop instead, thinking it was Kleinfeld's? And what could happen? And I've written a song. It's 8 minutes long. It has close to 1,000 words. It's in the show. I'm going to do it on Monday night, because you'll. Are you coming, by the way? Can you come?
I'm technically should probably be quarantined, or at least somewhat.
Well, you know what? I am going to videotape the show at some point, even if I just do it at home, because I think it's a good idea what I'm doing, but I won't know until I do it on Monday night. But that song is going to be in the show, and it's 8 minutes long. It's very complicated. It's a bitch to memorize, But that's an example because it's completely made up. And anybody who thinks it really happened, they'd be insane to think
Oh,
that.
wait. What about Hooterville, though? Because there's a song on your previous album, or most recent non-best of album, I believe it is, that opens the record about experiences that someone like you, if not you, had staying in hotels. Are those true?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. The Canadian story is the funniest of all. I love Canada. Both my guitars are Canadian. My winter boots are Canadian. I've played every Canadian festival. And people who think Canada is a place to escape for Americans, no, you don't escape from America by going to Canada. You go to Canada because you love Canadians and you love Canada. It's a whole different country up there. But I was in Vancouver and I got there a couple days early and I got there completely sleep deprived. And before the dorm opened up, where they were going to put all the performers, there were some local people connected to the festival who were putting up performers. And I was assigned to one of those houses. And so I had this crazy woman who picked me up at the airport who had just gotten a driver's license, who was not able to make left-hand turns because she was so frightened driving. I'm like white knuckle. Going from the airport. I remember it was very foggy and rainy and hazy. And it took us forever to get to the house because if she had to make a left turn, instead we had to go right, and then she had to do a U-turn. So when we finally got to the Canadian house, the parents weren't home. It was just this little girl. And I said, I'm the American supposed to stay with you. She goes, oh, come on in. So I said, I'm so tired. Can you just show me where the room is? I need to sleep. She goes, you can stay in my room. I said, okay. So we go, and her room is a mess. She was like a mini hoarder. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I have to go to a hotel because I really need sleep. She goes, no, you can stay in my room. So finally, I just left anyway. And it turned out that the woman who couldn't make left-hand turns brought me to the wrong house. And it was this little girl who didn't know me from Adam, who was going to let me stay in her room. And can you imagine when her parents got home from work and they'd find an American folk singer sleeping in her bed? I really dodged a bullet there.
Yes, that would be a lawsuit. That would be, oh my God, that's yeah, wow. Wow,
But
I
I
thought you were
love
going to tell the one about what you found under the covers of the bed. That was another one because you mentioned the lingerie. I'm not going to ruin it. Go listen to the Hooterville song by
yeah.
Christine
But
Lavin.
all of there's 3 different Hooterville songs on that album, and they're all absolutely true. I think the funniest one though is the second one where it was a nightclub owner in Ohio, and I told him I was staying in a motel, and he goes, oh no, we have a room just for performers. We've been working on renovating it. You've got to stay there. Where do you see it? It's gorgeous. So after the show, he drove me to the motel so I could drop my keys off. I woke up the owners. They were so mad at me I asked for a refund. They're like, no, we're not giving your money back to you. What has happened? So we could drive back to the house of this very nice club owner. And he shows me the room where I'm going to stay. And it's lovely. It's got blackout drapes. It's got Wi-Fi. It's got its own bathroom. It's got beautiful rugs. So I said, where's the bed? And he said, well, we haven't gotten a bed yet, but the carpeting is really soft. I was like, you expect I checked out of a motel where I had my own bed that I didn't even sleep in, and I paid for it so I could sleep on your floor? That really happened. And I will never say the name of the club owner, and he's gone now. So, but yeah, things
Is
happen.
he young? No, just kidding. Hilly Crystal? No, just pulling names out of a hat. And what's interesting is though, like if it was 1980, you would have been like, oh, a nice carpet. You would have been happy. You would have been, oh, it's a beautiful house. So it's a carpet. I'll make a pillow out of my. But when you're 40 years into the business and it's like, it's a carpet. All right, it's a children's room. Oh God, What is opposite question then? What is like the nicest, most surprisingly wonderful, beautiful, fancy place that you were ever putting up in when you were doing what you do?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually stayed in the home of some really rich people in Ojai, California. And it was the most gorgeous house. It was everything about it. And again, I was at the end of a tour and I was so exhausted. And all I wanted was to go to sleep. And then just as they're bringing me to the room, which is beautiful, the fireplace and everything, he said, one thing, tomorrow at 6 o'clock is when our garbage gets collected, and it's right under your window, but you probably sleep through it.
Did you
I
sleep
did.
through it? No, you did not.
And I thought, these people are lying in wait for me. They're just, how can we torture her?
This is the perils of touring. By the way, let me remind people, first of all, about your book that you wrote, as you said, about a decade ago. People can still get it on Amazon and
Well, you know
CHRISTINELAVIN.com.
what? I sell CDs and my book from my own website. And because I'm the president of the record company, I'm also the messenger. So, so I go to the post office whenever I get, oh, you know what, I was supposed to go today. And I forgot to go.
And they open at 8:30, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but and does it make sense? I guess it does. If you're especially still performing, to make CDs, to actually have physical hard copy things. By the way, when people buy things from your website, you sign them, which is a lovely thing, right? You know, personally hand sign things. But is that in this new normal where everybody's Spotifying and iTuning and putting, you know, tin cans together with string and listening to music this way? It makes sense.
It's harder and harder for us to make a living. When I really promote my records, I can almost make $1,000 a month selling them. And if I don't promote them, I make zero. So I will keep making physical discs because, you know, that's what I've done all along. And maybe I'm just sort of a Luddite in that sense, but I'll keep making them.
It's also the legacy. There's something about having that on your show. I'm like, this is my work, as opposed to just going to like files and random. Oh, I think I'll listen in this order. It's like, no, I took all this time, you know, putting the songs in this order on this side and this side. You know, I don't know. It's an
Yeah,
interesting world.
I have a tiny little, you know what? I'm gonna go get it. Hold on. You just talk amongst yourselves for a second.
I will talk amongst my me. We're talking with Christine Lavin, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody go see her Monday night, this coming Monday night, November 22nd. She will be at Birdland at 8:30 in the evening. To get tickets, go to birdlandjazz.com. What are you showing me here? It looks like a flash disc.
Yeah, it's a little flash drive and it says cold pizza for breakfast, because my idea was that I would put all the files of all my albums and my book on this little thing, and you could just buy this for a certain price, and it's sort of reversible. But I got this far and I never put anything on it. But if somebody wants everything, just write to me and say, I want everything you've done. I'll make one just for you, so you'll be the only one with it.
Well, at this point, though, with all your work, you need like a terabyte on that thing. You couldn't just do it in 8 gig or 16 gig.
Oh, no, this has enough room for everything. I made sure that I actually got, you know, it wasn't cheap to even just make these.
Now, when you got your doctorate from SUNY, does that come with like somebody having boxes of your archives from when you were playing Gertz Folk City and touring and doing albums and your song lyrics? Does a library or a place have that yet?
That came as a total shock and surprise, because when I went to SUNY Brockport, which is just west of Rochester, New York, I changed my major 6 times. And for all these years later, I graduated in 1973, all these years later to get an honorary doctorate in fine arts when you've had 6 majors. But a couple years ago in Rochester, New York, they inducted me into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, along with Al Jardine of the Beach Boys, which was so cool to meet him. He was always my favorite because he's like a pony-sized man. That's what I like.
Good to know.
And he
As
was
opposed to being hung like a horse, which is a very different, I don't even know what that means. Yes. Yeah, so you and Al Jardine on the same thing.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And he grew up in Rochester, New York. And that morning he took a tour of his old street, and there were still people there who he remembered, and they remembered him. And he still looks great. He still sounds great. And his son sings the high parts, because I played in a club called the Bull Run in Shirley, Massachusetts, just a couple weeks after he did with his son. And I just happened to ask the sound man, I said, what was Al Jardine like? Because I'm going to meet him in a couple of weeks at this induction into the Rochester, New York Hall of Fame for music. And the sound man said, I've been doing sound for 40 years, and I have never asked a headliner before if I could have their set list to put on my wall. He said it was hit after hit after hit, and it was sung so beautifully, and his son sings all the high parts that Brian Wilson used to sing. And he said, so that is up on my wall. And I never asked a headliner for that. He said, that's how much I love the show. So when I got to meet Al Jardine a few weeks later, I got to tell him that story. And he was like, what? That is so nice. He's a very, very nice man. And oh, I want to tell you another story, old music kind of story. Well, the first time I was in Australia, or maybe it was the second time, but I sang Downtown on one of my first record with Livingston Taylor. He sang harmony on it. And the DJ in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, just happened to mention that Tony Hatch, who wrote Downtown, lived in Sydney. And I was like, oh my God, I love that song. I've always wanted to talk to the songwriter. What inspired it? So I started going through the phone book in Sydney, Australia. Every T Hatch cost 75 cents a call. There's 4 million people in Sydney. At the time there were. So I called him. I said, are you the Tony Hatch who wrote Downtown? No. So then I went to every A Hatch, started calling. Are you the Anthony Hatch who wrote Downtown? And I finally got yes. I said, oh my God. I mean, I was so shocked. I said, hey, my name is CHRISTINE LAVIN. I'm a singer-songwriter from New York. I'm on tour in Australia. Could I take you out to lunch? He said, no. So I said, okay, can I ask you a couple of questions? She said, sure. So I said, did you write that song for Petula Clark? Was that who you always had in mind? And he said, not at all. He wrote it for the Drifters. He envisioned the Drifters singing that song. And he said, he was assigned, Petula Clark had been a child star in England, and because that's where he was from. And he was assigned to write songs for her as she transitioned to being a young adult star. And I said, what inspired it? And he said it was his first trip to New York City. He flew from London. He had no sleep, completely sleep deprived, took the bus at JFK, what at the time was called Idlewild, into downtown Times Square. And he said it was so beautiful, all the lights and all the activity. And the song just tumbled out of him. And as a songwriter, that's fascinating to me, because how many songwriters have lived in New York who didn't write Downtown? It took somebody with a fresh set of eyes. And so just a couple of years ago, I was playing at this little theater in Sellersville, Pennsylvania, and the Drifters were coming through a couple of weeks after I was there. So I left a big note on the dressing room wall, and I don't know, I haven't heard from them, but I said, did you know that Tony Hatch wrote Downtown for the Drifters? If you've never recorded it, you must do it.
Yeah.
So if you
ever, you know, if they're still, I don't know if they're still recording there, or nostalgia years or something like that, but who knows?
Probably not, you know, and I don't even know if there's any of the original members in the group.
Yeah, well, they drifted away. They would tend to. Yeah. I mean, when I go into, I've been to New York millions of times. Closest I came to writing a Downtown was, oh, you're in on the platform. You're in on the platform. You know, that's the only inspiration I ever had from being in New York. I did not sell 4 copies, not even. It sold 3 copies and one guy returned his. It's a long kind of story. Let me ask you some other questions. Right. CHRISTINE Lavin, what's new in astrophysics?
What's new in astrophysics?
Well, your wiki page says that you're you know.
Well, you know, I am. I got a D in astronomy, but it's one of the things that I've had to try to make up for my whole life. And one of the things that's about to happen in December is they're going to launch the James Webb Space Telescope. It's going to happen in Guyana, South America. December 18th is now the launch date, but it was supposed to be 2018. So there's a chance it could get postponed again. But I made a video of Michael Feinstein singing Up, Up and Away, Jimmy Webb song. Jimmy Webb, James Webb. And the fact is that James Webb was the head of NASA back in 1978 when, or 76 or whatever it was, when Jimmy wrote that song. James Webb was the head of NASA, and they both share this love of the sky. So I'm hoping somebody will pick up on the video or the song and play it when the spaceship, when the James Webb Space Telescope takes off, because it has a collecting mirror that is 5 times bigger than the Hubble. 5 times bigger. Think
And
about
unlike
it.
the Hubble, it can focus. So this is, you know.
Yeah, remember the Hubble couldn't focus at first, so they had to go fix
Yeah,
that.
remember. I have that issue with these. I can't even look at this. It's terrible. Hold on. Oh, see much better now. Oh, the lights. Here we go.
Well, that's just for effect.
Well, they're very effective. Now I can see you again. So here's the question. And now you bring up two different strands. First of all, when God willing, a million times you reach 91 years old, and if Elon Musk or NASA offered, would you do the Shatner?
Boy, what a question. I don't think I would, just because the first time I took the elevator up to the top of the Empire State Building, I fainted.
Okay, so perhaps not.
Yeah, that stayed with me for a long time.
Hubble makes a submarine. Now, and the other thing is Jimmy Webb, James Webb. Okay, this brings up the fact there's a totally, completely weird coincidence coming back to your SUNY degree that you have a brother who's not named Christine, but he's also named Chris. And what was it? The same week, you both got honorary doctoral degree. I mean,
I know.
What are the odds?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. My brother Christopher was born on Columbus Day, but Columbus has been sort of dissed since then. And we grew up in a household with 9 children, and 2 of us are named Chris. So when the phone would ring, and also there was 2 Jodies, that was my mom and my sister, and 2 Toms, my father and my brother. So the phone rang, there was always bedlam. And Christopher he played some kind of football on weekends. It wasn't a school thing, it was like a club thing. And he got the trophy for the most valuable player when I was in college. And he gave me the trophy, and I had it on my dorm desk. And I told people that I would go home just some weekends, and I would hold the ball for the extra point and then for the kickoff. And they gave me the trophy, because who would think there'd be a trophy for Chris Lavin for football that, that wouldn't be real. But yeah, so Christopher is the head of the Boys and Girls Club in Geneva, New York. And in fact, this fall, they raised $1 million for the club. My brother spearheaded that. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And he got this honorary doctorate in humane letters from Hobart William Smith College. That's where he went to school, which is, I think their tuition is $45,000 a year. And the school I went to was $8,000 a year. So his robes are much fancier than mine. But it was really a pretty great thing that the 2 of us would have honorary doctorates within a week of each other.
Hey, I have a chenille robe hanging in the closet there. Gotta get the moths out of it, actually. Let me ask you a question, Christine Lavin, because you write, as we've said, sometimes really silly songs, sometimes serious songs, sometimes a mix of the two. And you've probably at this point written several hundred songs. Are there ones, considering the times we live in, that you wouldn't sing again in public, you wouldn't go back to, because you wrote them at a certain time when it was okay to say certain things, and now when it occurred to you in 1984, something like that?
Well, people ask all the time for the Prince Charles song, because I wrote it basically to warn Prince Charles and Diana, because I wrote it back in 1981, not to get married, that it wasn't going to work. Anybody could see it wasn't going to work. And it's just heartbreaking how all of that played out and how it continues to play out. So I never, ever do that song again. But I also wrote a song, which is timely right now. When I was in Dallas, Texas on tour, and I got there a day early, and I asked the front desk, I said, is there anything happening near the hotel. I've got the night off, and the hotel clerk leaned across and he spoke kind of softly, because it's something that the city of Dallas has never, never lived down, that Kennedy was
Oh, I thought you
shot.
were going to say the cowboy cheerleaders, but no, yeah, the Kennedy guys do that.
And so I went to the 6th floor museum, which was very well done. And it's more of a historical and educational place now. It's beautiful. And it's the most popular tourist attraction in Dallas, and it's not advertised because they still have such mixed feelings about it. But I wrote a song about walking around and exactly what happened from one minute to the next. And I bought a pen as I walked out of the store that had the little logo on it. It said the 6th floor, and it had 5 little brick lines, and then the top line is black. And the next day, or 2 days later, I was on a plane flying to the next city, and I took out that pen because I had started writing the song as soon as I got back to the hotel. And when I opened up the pen on the airplane, it did one of those exploding ink things.
Well, appropriate.
Flight attendants came running out because they all saw it happen, and put all these paper towels around it, and they threw the pen away. And it's the only thing I ever wrote with that pen was the song, the 6th floor. And years later, they invited me to come and play that song. I did an afternoon concert, and they wanted all serious songs they wanted me to play the Dakota about John Lennon.
Yeah.
And you know what I remember most from that show? That there was a woman right in the front row was texting the entire time. And I want to say to her, what are you doing? We're at the 6th floor museum. It's a holy place. It's people are very somber and serious here. And you are texting. Oh.
Well, it is in Dallas, Texas. I'm sorry. I apologize most humbly for that joke. Can you separate the singer from the song in the sense of, like, everybody now in this is accused of something they said 10 years ago that was bad, and sometimes it did really bad. Can you separate Wagner's music from Wagner? Can you separate Bill Cosby's comedy from Bill Cosby, and so forth? And so, I mean, they came out with the thing against Bob Dylan. Who the hell knows if that's true? With that girl who was accusing him. Can you, if God forbid it's true?
Well, I think that back when a lot of these things happened, there was no internet, and there was no way to chase down any of these rumors, and people felt empowered, or, that they were just above it all. And I think that nobody thinks that anymore. And I think that going forward, there's not a lot of that kind of behavior, but there is some. And I know Don McLean also has been suffering from that too. But the truth is, none of us, we've all done things. I know I've done things.
Oh, like what? No, I didn't.
I'll never say.
Did you go after Brian Laundrie? I don't think that was a suicide. I think you. No, I'm kidding.
By the way, I have to show you this. This is hanging on my Christmas tree.
Oh,
it's in everything bagel. Let's see. Can you see that?
So you're really mixing up the cultures there, and everything is somehow appropriate on a Christmas tree. I would be angry, I think, if you had a poppy seed. That would just be wrong. But in everything, I will accept that, since you are a goy. If you were a Jew and you had a Christmas tree, I would have a problem. But a goy celebrating this, I like. This is true. But I'm not going to let you off the hook so quick, because not with any bad stories or anything. But I didn't remember, or I'd forgotten that you were a conveyor, a driver during the Rolling Thunder Review.
Yeah, wasn't that crazy?
Do you have any stories about this?
Well, I do. My Bob Dylan story is just a little nutty, though. I traveled for the first week with Lena Spencer. She was invited, and she didn't have a car or a driver's license. I had a driver's license, and we teamed up with a girl who had a car. And I got to see the show 3 times the first week, and I saw the show from the front row. I saw it from all the way, all the way in the back by the follow spot operator. And my favorite was when I watched from the side, from the wings. And it was, nobody, it was very hush hush. They would go from city to city. Nothing was on paper. We were told to follow the buses. And when we had to go back to the Cafe Lena because there were shows that weekend, Bob Dylan sat with us in this diner off the Massachusetts Turnpike and asked what we were doing, because we were looking at a map and trying to figure out how do we get back, because none of us had a good sense of direction. So we explained it, and then he goes, oh, well, thanks for coming. It was really nice. You can come join us anytime. So then it looked like there was this lull. And I thought, oh, please, Bob, say something I'll remember forever. Please say something else. And he's getting up, and I said, oh, Bob, I love how you end the show with "This land is your land." It's so great. And how everybody takes a verse. It's like, solidarity. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to end the show. He said, thank you. So I said, have you ever heard that verse written by Arlo Guthrie's friend, the Native American? He goes, no, how's it go? So I said, this land was your land. This land was my land until I sold you Manhattan Island. You moved our nation to the reservation. This land was stole by you from me. So he said, oh, that's good. Thanks. Maybe we'll do it. And so he walked away, and I thought, I'm sitting with the greatest songwriter of the 20th century, and I tell him how a song goes.
But you did. He would have. I think he appreciated that. I know it was the exact right thing to say to him. But since you were on the Rolling Thunder, did you deal with any of the other luminaries who were part of that, or even somebody like Sam Shepard or Joni Mitchell? Somebody who.
It was Joan Baez.
Sorry. Yeah.
I ended up writing a song about Ramblin' Jack. It's called Ramblin' Waltz, and I re-recorded it on the Hooterville record because I was never that satisfied with the music. I wanted it to be a little more unsettling because it was too pretty, I think, the original. But that was really interesting because watching him, he was on early in the show. He had to be on early in the show because he and Dylan sounded so much alike. And if Dylan went on first, and if he followed Dylan, people would say, what, but Dylan took a lot of his singing style from Ramblin' Jack. So he would do his set early on, then he'd come off stage, and then he'd be waiting around the wings, and finally for the big finale, he's out doing a verse of This Land Is Your Land. And then we'd all go to the whatever hotel it was that night, and have like a little party at the bar or just sit around. And I watched him because he seemed he was thrilled to be part of it, and he deserved to be there, deserved to be part of it. But he looked a little lost because when he wasn't singing, he was just hanging around, and he was like a small part in a very big show. And I thought he looks like he would be, he'd leave if he could. So that's basically what I wrote the song about. And then, to re-record it 45 years later after the fact was interesting because at the time, I didn't think it was such a big deal to be one of the entourage drivers for Rolling Thunder Revue. But as time went on, I realized, that was kind of a big deal.
Well, his history is absolutely. Did you see the Scorsese film about it?
I watched some of it, but it seemed like there was a lot of extra stuff that it just didn't measure up to what my memories of the show. But did you watch it?
The interesting thing about it is they're playing head games with you because they're making up stuff too. The whole point is hit behind the shades and a little bit. So this seems real. And then you've got people telling a story who couldn't have possibly been there. And then trying to make drama that really wasn't, and then things that really were. The whole idea of the film is you're not supposed to know that what everything is real and what is not real. It's quite fascinating. It's a fun watch. You should give it another look.
Is it on Netflix?
I believe it is. I believe that this is where I saw it.
I don't have Netflix, but maybe I'll join it.
Watch it illegally off some system. That's what everybody does anyway. Just pull it down from, go on the roof with one of those rabbit ears and just point it to someone who likes music. You'll probably be able to download that movie. probably be able to see most of it. Let me ask you also, do you have a few more minutes? Because we do love talking through this. This is such a delight. Like so many folky people and musical and artistic people, you did not have a great love for the previous president of the United States. When you put a ton of your energy into writing songs and videos and trying to, and congratulations, you removed him. You know, he did not get a second term. In retrospect, was he that terrible? Now that we're a year away from him, in retrospect, while you're not living it, do you look back and go, all right, I didn't like him, bad president, but you know, not Golgotha.
Well, I'll tell you, I had heard a story about him in 1994. I was at a dinner party and there was a bunch of actors there and all grousing about all the crazy jobs they've had to do when they're not acting. And of course, this one guy was talking about he worked as a waiter and he worked for the caterer who catered Donald Trump's wedding with Marla Maples at the Plaza Hotel. And he said it was a huge deal. And this young caterer was a woman and she thought she'd won the lottery, didn't know why a lot of the bigger caterers didn't bid on this job. And what happened is the day of the wedding, this all happened in front of the staff and everything. Donald Trump told the caterer, I'm not paying you. You are so lucky to get to be the one to cater my wedding. He said, when you tell people you cater my wedding, you will make more money than you could ever imagine. And so I'm doing you a favor. When I do favors, I don't pay, you pay. And this poor woman almost went bankrupt.
Oh my God.
He stiffed everybody. And
I thought the story was going in a different direction. I thought he tried to stiff her on his wedding night, and that would be a very different thing. But this is just as bad, and it really plays to his character. You're right. That sucks.
Yeah, and I heard the story in 1994. It's not like I heard it while he was president. It was a decade, decades before. And so in New York, we knew he was no good. And how he was able to parlay his television persona into this thing where he was, only I can fix it and all of that crap. That's why there's just no way I could see anyone in their right mind, anyone educated, could ever cast a vote for him in the future. So I'm hoping that all of that's what's going on right now is all bluster and smoke and mirrors, and that the general electorate will see through it. And the secret is that we just need to have education. We need people to understand how our country works, understand the laws, and also to look out for our fellow man, because the whole COVID thing where they're saying it's a hoax and all of that, it's how that can be. It's these are very selfish people who do not care if they spread the germs around. So I hope we have seen the last of him in public service forever.
Okay. So still not a fan. I think we can say that for sure. But
I wish Melania would write a book, a pop-up book.
Better than a scratch and sniff. Anywho, we're here with Christine. Let me ask you, if of all the songs that you have written since 2010, not even going back 40 years, what would be the one, either your quote-unquote favorite because they're all your children, blah, 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 or the one you're most proud of?
Since 2010. Oh.
It can be 2009, okay, or but not.
My most requested song forever is "The Kind of Love You Never Recover From," but I wrote that one even longer. That was like 1990 when I wrote that song, but I had no idea the nerve that I touched with that song, and that is in my show on Monday, even though it's very hard for me to sing. And the man that I wrote it about died in 2013.
Was it Irvin Drake?
Oh no, he wasn't my boyfriend. I loved Irvin.
Right. Yeah.
But no, the thing is, he was a wonderful man, and he didn't like to have a spotlight on him. So I respect his privacy and don't say that. But that song has I've met so many people who've told me how that particular song affected them. And my most memorable couple was at a small theater in New Hampshire. And they were both tall and tan and both had big heads of white fluffy hair. So these were not kids. And they waited for me at the very end of the show. They waited for everybody to be gone because they wanted to have a private moment with me. And they told me the story about they both grew up in New Hampshire, went to high school together, and they married different people, and decades went by, and he was in Florida and he was divorced, and he heard that song on the radio, The Kind of Love You Never Recover From, and he thought about her and he decided that it was a sign that he should look her up. So he called back to New Hampshire, found out where she worked. He called the company, and she had just quit. And they said they could not give him any forwarding information. It was against company rules. So he got on a plane and he flew to New Hampshire, and he walked around and he found people who knew her. And he said he wanted to know if she was around. He just wanted to say hello to her. And he found out she was divorced. And when I met them that night at that small theater in New Hampshire, they had just gotten married. And I was like, oh my God. And they wanted me to know because they said if they hadn't heard that song on the radio, that it would never have happened.
Oh,
And
what a happy ending. What a, oh, okay. Yes, this
yeah,
is, yeah.
because it's like we all go through so much, and we want happiness at the end of our life. We don't want it just at the beginning or the middle, but it's really important that at the end that you're with people that you love and who love you and value who you are and value what you do. And when they share stories like that with me, it makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing with my life. Of course, then other times I'm completely filled with self-doubt and all that, but those moments sustain me.
Would you consider yourself happy overall? I mean, artists are never really, really happy, but you know.
Well, I feel very lucky that my mom was such an optimist. My father was doom and gloom kind of person, and all of my 8 brothers and sisters were all varying degrees of that combination. And I got a lot more of my mom than my father. But when I'm sleep deprived, that's when dad comes out. but,
you,
um,
you,
but in general, I'm happy.
and you feel free not to answer, but do you date at all? Was there anybody after the person?
Well, there was a moment when he was, he was very sick, but we were talking about getting married, and his daughter was working up a prenup so that we could finally do that, because it was a very complicated situation. But and that there was that one moment where my heart just leapt, because I thought, oh my God, I never thought this would happen with this guy, and I loved him so much. And he would be very, very difficult for anyone else to fill his shoes. He was a great bicyclist. He was a mountain climber. He was a terrific skier. He loved the opera. He was funny. He would everywhere he would go, he would try to bring people together. And I loved that. And I know some people, if you went out with a guy who immediately starts talking to the people at the next table, they'd be really a little bit angry. but I love that with him, and I encouraged it all the time, because that's what I like to do too. So it's hard because I use his name as my password for many things. So first thing I do when I wake up is type his name, and I feel like I'll never get over him if I keep using his name as my password, but I'm not ready to give up his name as my password.
If he brought that much to your life, then you must leave him in your life in those kinds of little ways.
I still dream about him all the time. And in some of the dreams, it's so real. And I say, why are you still here? And oh well, sorry.
Wow. Let's get more optimistic. Let's remind people that they can see this wonderful, wonderful singer, songwriter, and human being. I'm going to throw the human being part in there too. Christine Lavin. She will be live this Monday night, November 22nd. See her 8:30 p.m. at Birdland. Get tickets at birdlandjazz.com. LAVIN.com. We also want to bring you to her website, Christine Lavin, Lavin. It was just spelled just like Linda Lavin, who's been on this program as well. Christine, the usual way, Lavin.com. This is where you can get so many of her records, including On My Way to Hooterville, which came out just a year and a half ago, her 2019 Best of record. The book is on sale there too.
Yep. And I'll sign them all.
And she will sign them on Cold Pizza for Breakfast, or that's there also.
Yep. It'll be worth more money in the Antique Roadshow for your great grandchildren.
That is optimistic, assuming that the world will go on, that we're not going to burn up in a climate fireball by the time great. That already is kind of optimistic. Well, Christina has been an absolute joyful delight for because
I feel like
I'm sorry.
I feel like I've confessed some of my sins to you, some of my dark thoughts.
Wrong religion, but it's all right. I can put up a thing. It's like this, and you can make believe I'm a priest, and just tell me anything. Not quite anything, but no. I want to tell you this, and I want to remind listeners and viewers that back when this program was just a radio program on Long Island Radio, Christine came out to Babylon, Long Island. She schlepped with a guitar, she played, and she tumbled, and she talked with Dave, who is the producer of this program, and had this most marvelous time, so marvelous, and she became such a friend that he invited her back to the 500th episode of the show. You were on there, you called in, and now so delightful that we actually get to see you as well as hear you. I'm not going to ask you to play a song to play us out, although you do you want to sing us something a cappella to sing us out? A little something?
Wait, I'll get my guitar.
She's getting a guitar! Whoa! I should have asked this in the beginning of the program. We're going to have more music. Oh well. My mistake. Christine Lavin, by the way, grabbing her guitar.
What? I've got to put the capo on the neck.
Very important to put the capo on there.
Let's see.
Just like they put the capo on James Brown's back when he comes back for another song. You just tie that thing on there.
You know, I once met Bobby Bird, who used to sing with James Brown.
Wow.
I'll just do a song that doesn't use a capo.
Okay.
Much trouble. Can you edit out all this stuff?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I'm not touching a minute. This part is fun too. It's the rough and ready. Here we go. Do you need to tune it, or I assume you play it every day? It's kind of in tune.
Oh yeah, I certainly do. Can you hear it?
Oh, we hear it beautifully. Let me ask you before then, because I recognize that guitar from one of your album covers. Is there a story behind that guitar?
Oh yeah, this was designed by Grit Laskin, who's a Canadian luthier up in Toronto, and it has all the planets on it: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto.
I'm glad they made room for Uranus, because a lot of times they.
And there's the Pioneer spacecraft on the headstock, and instead of a man and a woman with their hand up naked, it's got me playing a guitar.
Wow!
A little headset mic when I used to be wireless.
That should be on the Sistine Chapel. Christine at the Sistine playing the guitar. Don't steal that title. I wrote that. Okay. Oh, shut up.
I can't do it in this key. This is.
No, this is delightful. I can we can tumble a little bit more.
Now, where did I put the capo? I mean, I had it. You saw me trying to put it on the neck of the guitar.
Yes. Okay.
Where did it? Oh, here.
Most people leave an extra key under the mat by the door. You can try the key there.
I have a song that's really, really fun. I'm gonna sing it. It's not going to be in the show, so I can do it now because I don't want to give stuff away. But I can. This is a psychic test. Jeez, that to find out if you have psychic powers. So, Rabbi, have you ever felt that you have psychic powers?
I've been called psychotic. That's about as close as I've ever come to that.
Well, seriously, in any given community, between 1% and 2% are truly psychic, and So I want you to play along with this, and anybody who's watching, play along, even though if you're seeing it on tape, because it will prove if you have psychic powers or not. I am psychic, so are you. Just do what I ask you to. You skeptics won't believe it's true. I am psychic, so are you. Okay, Rabbi, I want you to pick a number between 1 and 9. Don't say it out loud. Don't even tell the person sitting next to you, but remember it. Remember it, okay? Now double it. Add 4. Divide this number by 2. Subtract the number that you started out with from the number you have now. Look at my brain, Rabbi, look at my brain. You have some psychic power if you are now thinking of the number 2. Are you thinking of 2?
I always think of the number 2. But for various reasons, I'm constantly thinking of number 2. But yes, that was my number.
All right, I invite you and anyone who's watching to take the second level of psychic testing now. This is a little bit harder, and you can write it down like the rabbi is doing. If you're not secure in your mathematics,
There you go.
still test your psychic powers. I want everybody now to pick a number between 2 and 17. Remember it. Now double it. Add 8. Divide this number by 2. Subtract the number that you started out with from the number you have now. Look at my brain. Look at my brain. You have even greater psychic powers if you are now thinking of the number 4. Were you thinking of 4?
Yes, I really actually was thinking of number 4. This is...
Hey, you know what? We're going to make it much harder for the final psychic test. Rabbi, I want you now to think of a number between 3 and 750,000. Think of a high number if you're confident. Think of a low number if you're not. Remember it.
I'm not going to remember it, but I'm writing the thing down. Okay.
No, write it down. Write it down. Okay. Now double it.
Take some time here. Hold on. Okay.
Add 2.
Okay.
Right. Divide this number by 2.
Right, hold on. Okay.
Subtract the number that you started out with from the number you have now. Don't say anything. Just tell me when you're there. Okay. Are you there?
I'm there.
Okay. Now, I want you to go to the corresponding letter of the alphabet. If you're thinking of the number 1, that would be A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E. If you're thinking of the number 26, that would be Z. All right. So you're thinking of a letter in the alphabet. Okay. Now, I want you to think of a fruit that begins with the letter of the alphabet that you're thinking, okay? So you're thinking of a fruit. Now, I want you to go to the second letter of that fruit. And I want you to think of a city anywhere in the world, but not the United States, that begins with the second letter of the fruit that you are thinking. Okay, so you're thinking of a fruit, and you're thinking of a city. And you're looking at my brain. Now I'm here to tell you, you have psychic powers if you are now thinking of an apple in Paris.
I am scared now. I'm a rabbi. You are the devil. You are a temptress devil. You have spirits that are singing to my head. I need to start wearing tinfoil.
Wait, did you actually write down what you were doing? Because you can show people that we're not. Okay, look at that. You wrote it down. Oh my God, this has never happened before.
What? How do people remember to know a double 147,414? But I'm sure that minus that first number you thought of usually comes up with the same kind. I mean, I'm sure that's the trick, but still, no.
No, you have psychic powers. You could now add that to your resume.
Wow.
Thank you for doing that. This has never happened. I mean, I've always hoped that it would happen, but it never has happened before. Seriously.
Wasn't that people have written down? Well, wait. What number do they pick if you're telling them they can go up to 750,000? What do you normally think they pick? Oh,
I don't know what they're going to pick. It's all.
Oh, you don't have psychic. They have the psychic power. You don't. I can't.
Well, no, I do, but they do too. But it's because it does not always come out right. And I'm thinking as I'm playing it, I'm thinking I've never done this where it's just one person. Because what if he doesn't get it right? And then the whole ending of the song is like a big nothing. But
well, you also put a lot of confidence in my math skills there. Because I was like, oh, let me pick this number. And oh, yeah.
Well, I think I assume maybe you were doing it on a calculator on your laptop.
No, it was all here. And you know what? Even in that second one, I was like, I think I'll do 13. And then I stopped myself. And now a lot of people probably do 13. Let me do 11. And you still got it. And it came down to whatever it was 4 or something. I'm just...
You know what? You gotta send me that. I'll put it up on my wall like that sound guy put up Al Jardine set list.
I will say, if you give me not on the, if you give me your mailing address over on Midtown Manhattan, I will mail you this piece of paper, even as the questions I was asking you on the other side there.
You know what I'll do? I'm gonna fold it up like origami and put it on my Christmas tree.
Wow. What greater honor can a rabbi have?
Along with the everything bagel. I got this from Michael's. Last year.
Oh, Michael's, yes, we loved it. We don't like Hobby Lobby because they're kind of, no, but Michael's we do like.
And after Christmas, you can get a deal on these.
Absolutely. And can you get a schmear to hang with it? Because the bagel alone, you need like just a drippy cream cheese next to it on the tree. Dang, and like little scallion ornaments. Now you'd be talking. Now that would be something.
That's a great idea.
Christine Lavin, what an absolute delight and a joy it is to have you in the neighborhood again. We invite you back again and again and again. We wish you, first of all, great health, good things, happiness, and you're already sort of half the time happy, more time happy. And we invite everybody to come see you Monday night, November 22nd, 8:30 p.m. at Birdland. And that is over, I don't have the address on that. Is that 50?
Oh, it's 315 West 44th Street. And it's the Birdland Theater, which is downstairs. It has its own separate kitchen. And they've got a bar. And it's a beautiful room. It's a very adult night out.
Ooh.
Dress up.
Not that kind of adult thing like the things you pulled out of the mouth.
Oh, no. I mean,
hear that song. But it's birdlandjazz.com for tickets and CHRISTINELAVIN.com for everything else. Christine, we love you. We love you in the neighborhood. The only thing that keeps you from being perfect is that you're not Jewish, but maybe you'll work on it. We'll see.
I walked by the temple the other day because now I shop on Trader Joe's on Broadway between 71st and 72nd. And I thought, the temple, that might be a nice place to meet somebody. But then I kept walking. So.
Hey, maybe next time you'll go. You never know. You never know. But we know that we love you, Christine Lavin. We wish you all great things and happy holidays and all that too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shalom to you.